Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 11, Episode 78. East Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Glad you guys are back with us for this Wednesday show, Steelers Nation. Dave Bryan, how you doing?
I'm doing good. You better get that sun busy up your way before I get up there. I don't want none of that below 30 weather when I'm up there visiting you guys and all up there.
Well, that's what you get for coming to PA in February.
Well, when else am I going to come, you know?
I'm just saying.
But, yeah, excited to come up there. And I think the great David O is going to spend a couple of days with us up there as well, too. And who knows, maybe we even drive over to the Pro Football Hall of Fame and all. So, and hopefully by then we'll have a couple more new Steelers in there as well too. So, an exciting weekend still ahead, even though it doesn't really technically involve the Steelers, playing in the Super Bowl. But a lot to look forward to still, football wise these next few days.
And plenty to talk about Steelers-wise, including the official coaching hire of one man. I believe the news broke, as it always seems to do, just an hour or two after Monday's podcast, that Adrian Clem, formerly the assistant offensive line coach from 2019 to 2020 with the Pittsburgh Steelers, will be and has been now officially promoted to head offensive line coach, replacing Sean Surratt. So the Steelers interviewed at least two outside candidates, had a third guy they wanted to talk to, Mike Devlin in Houston, who appeared to turn down the interview. And so ultimately the Pittsburgh Steelers stay in-house with the promotion of Adrian Clem.
Yeah, you don't want Grumpy Dave going first on this one, do you?
I think we have.
Why don't you go first on this one here?
Well, just putting how good of a coach Clem is or could be aside for a moment here, my initial reaction, the optics of this was they didn't really have any other options. That this was kind of the last guy in the sense where they interviewed Hank Fraley. He goes back to Detroit. They interviewed James Campen, the former Chargers O-line coach. That came and went. They got turned down, it appears, by Mike Devlin, and they figured, we just don't have any other outside candidates worth talking to, so let's just stay in-house. And it's obvious this team wanted a coach with an NFL resume in terms of playing days. Fraley, Campen, and Devlin all had that. Adrian Clem has it his whole 5 years in the NFL, won 2 Super Bowls with the Patriots. So that is some credibility I think they wanted in the room with whoever was commanding it. And it is good that Clem does have plenty of offensive line coach experience, albeit in college, but did it at SMU and UCLA and was generally praised for the jobs that he did there. So for Clem, the coach himself, obviously these things are really tough for us to evaluate, but on the optics of it, it kind of felt like this was the fallback option for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And there was a debate about, does this, fulfill Tomlin's mantra of we have to change the status quo with 2 in-house promotions with Matt Canada to OC and Clem to O-line coach. So just on the optics of it, that doesn't look great.
Not great at all. I mean, especially look, we knew going into, as soon as the contract of Randy Fichtner was not renewed, we had a pretty good idea who was going to be next man up there. And heck, even go back to when Matt Canada was hired to be the quarterback's coach, a year ago. I think even then we saw, well, the writing's on the wall there, right? So you could sort of see that coming. Now, once the move was made with Matt Canada here a couple weeks ago, and then you obviously lost James Daniel out of that room, and the contract that it became evident that it looked like they were going to keep Eddie Faulkner at running back coach and all like that. It really felt like what they needed in that room was some experience and somebody that's been there, done that kind of coach, especially when it comes to getting that offensive line back whooped in shape there. And you look at some of the initial reports of the people that they had interest in interviewing there, and makes you really kind of wonder, right? You get the 2 out of the way, and then you get the report that the third really didn't want to, I guess, interview, and then it's like, oh, okay, well, here you go, Adrian, you want it? You know,
Right.
that's the way it looks like. Now, did it go down that way? We don't know. Obviously, all we can do is look at it from the outside here. But it looks like a lazy hire here. Now, granted, look, do we know exactly what went on in the offensive line rooms the last couple seasons here with Sean Surratt and Adrian Clem? No, absolutely not. But you look at the results that this team has had with the offensive line the last couple of years specifically. Heck, for that matter, go back to Munchak's final year.
Mm-hmm.
For Munchak, for the name recognition and everything he gets and all like that. If you look at run success rates, man, all right, we'll talk a little bit more about those later in the show. One of my favorite, one of my 18 favorite topics. That I run into the ground. It wasn't great underneath him either. So just another sign that the offensive line is getting. I guess what I'm getting at is, what do you expect to change?
Right.
Who can sell me bill of goods here on Adrian Clem that makes me excited that he's the right choice here? And I know a couple of former Steelers offensive linemen, Trey Essex and Ramon Foster, have gone on record with support for Clem. Why wouldn't Foster? I mean, he played for him, right? Or was on a team when Clem was there, right? So and then now Essex. Essex, bleeds black and gold to the heart. So, he had a couple interesting things to say, on the matter as well too. But outside of those two, who do we have, pushing that this was a great hire here?
Yeah, that's a fair point. And obviously, it was good to see at least those guys, say positive things about Adrian Clem, talking about Trey Essex and Ramon Foster. But, were they going to come out and criticize the hire? They were either going to say nothing or they were going to praise the hire. And, we said some of those same things about Sean Surratt. I said those things about Sean Surratt. I was excited when they hired him to be the full-time offensive line coach. Not that because Surratt failed means that Clem's going to fail. They're totally independent things. But how much stock do you put in it? It's hard to say. So, yeah, was this a Matt Canada situation where they wanted Clem as the guy and these outside hires were just due diligence? That's possible. That's not my sense of the situation, because Clem was never reported to be really in the mix until they just said, okay, he's going to be promoted in the guy. So Canada's name was thrown into the front runner position almost as soon as they parted away with Randy Fichtner. So it just felt like a fallback option. It doesn't mean that the Clem's a bad coach. The general consensus is that Clem was a good coach in college, again, at SMU and then UCLA. So is this, you couldn't get into Harvard, so you go to Penn and you're still going to a good school? Or is this, you couldn't get into Pitt, so you're going to Westmoreland Community College? Go Wolfpack. Like this, which one of those is it in terms of the fallback thing? So I obviously, again, we don't know much about Clem as the coach. But I think the question that you asked is the big one, is what is he going to do different that Surratt was doing that Clem would have disagreed with? And why wasn't that implemented before? And how is that going to get implemented now? That is probably the big question that makes you question this hire a little bit.
Yeah, I couldn't get in any of those. I had to go to Pensacola Junior College for about 6 hours.
That was it.
And that was about it of that. That was my college career. Are we to believe that Adrian Clem had to sit on his hands a lot for the last 2 years? Or, keep his lips shut for like, it just, people say how someone wrote somewhere in the chat or on the comments on the site, all you and Alex do is connect the dots and talk about next man up and all like that. Then now you act like you're shocked that Clem's the guy. Well, that's not the aspect of it. How someone can even go that way with a comment there, I don't understand. Our whole view of this was that connecting the dots would be someone that would be easy to connect back to the Steelers organization. Not that we thought that, and with that along the lines that it was going to be an outside hire, because there was every appearance given that it was going to be an outside hire, especially on the heels of Matt Canada being an inside hire, So it wasn't that You see what I'm saying there? I don't know
Sure.
where to comment or got yeah, we were surprised. At least I was. I mean, I was pretty shocked when Clem was announced to be the guy. Because of the path that they had taken up until that point. Now, can you obviously connect the dots back to Clem? Yeah, he's in your own damn building. So I think it was just an ignorant comment by one of our people on the site there to make that. I mean, to me, it was a big surprise. And look, I mean, the milk, get the rag out. Let's clean up the milk and dry our eyes and move on. I mean, our bitching's done about it after really this show, and then now we'll move forward and see what Adrian Clem can do with this offensive line.
Right, and even though he was an assistant coach, and we don't get to see that guy work too often, I know in the 2019 training camp, whenever his first year there, just in the way that dynamic work between Munchak and Surratt was, they would break them off into groups where Surratt would take either the tackles and Surratt the interior guys, or vice versa. So you're working with those guys closely. It's not that you're an assistant in some sort of reserve role. And to Essex's point about why he liked the hire was the development of younger guys like Chuck Wilmore for Kevin Dotson. Essex was saying that the assistant usually works with more of the backup guys, and the head offensive line coach works with the starters more. And so you're seeing guys like Kevin Dotson be play ready and prepared for the rookie, or even at left guard, and Dotson played really well. So those are some positive things. So we'll see. This obviously it's a pretty big task that Clem's going to have, with a lot of new faces coming in, a lot of old faces likely exiting this offseason, and hopefully he does a good job. But the bottom line is they're the worst rushing team in the last 50 years, and to promote from within, I think it's reasonable to sit there and say, was that the ideal option? And considering the interviews they tried to go they conducted in terms of the outside interviews, maybe that Clem wasn't their first choice and was just kind of the best option left on the board.
All right, now a few positives related to Clem, and you've already obviously hit on a few of those. Look, he did play in the NFL, right? He was a former NFL offensive lineman. I think on top of that, a little bit of a positive is he cut his teeth in the NFL with the Patriots, playing and being coached by the great Dante Scarnecchia. All right, so if you don't know who Dante Scarnecchia is, shame on you. Google it, because he just one of the mastermind offensive offensive grizzled more comes from the school, put people on their ass, offensive line coach. And, to learn, as many years as Clem did under him, hopefully a lot of that coaching style potentially rubbed off on him as well, too. So to me, that is one aspect of a positive there. Another is that, Clem was able to cut his teeth as a true offensive line coach in college before getting into the NFL ranks, and then obviously since then has been an assistant. So this technically isn't a green guy that you have coming in there. He's obviously got a resume that, had he not been an offensive line coach even this year, maybe we're talking about next year that either with the Steelers or with another team that he's getting a shot to be an offensive line coach. These guys have got to come from somewhere, right? And a lot of them end up coming out of the college ranks these days as well too. So look, it's make no mistake about it, whoever got the job is going to be a tall task. I just really thought it was going to be someone outside the organization and someone with an experience at doing that job. So we'll see. It's a tall task. Look, nowhere to go but up, right?
Yeah, hopefully. And so I think the intention was to do an outside hire. When all those options failed or seemed to fail, they just decided to stay in-house rather than try to make a reach for an outside hire. So I think that's where my overall thoughts come in here. But hopefully Clem turns his line around, because they certainly need to. And just to kind of bounce off that point, we're talking about potential free agents and changes for the offensive line, new faces coming in. You wrote an article, and I agree with the principle of it absolutely, that a guy like Kelvin Beachum could circle back to Pittsburgh, and for multiple reasons. Obviously, this team could need some tackle depth if guys like Zach Banner, Gerald Hawkins don't resign. Obviously, Villanueva, Filer walk in for agency as well. And the interesting point that you had noted was that Clem had coached Beachum at SMU for at least one season, so there's a connection there that could certainly help.
Yeah, I think it was more than one season actually.
One season? Okay.
I think it was pretty much Beacham's pretty damn near all of Beacham's college career. Now look, that went over like a lead balloon for some reason. I guess people think the Steelers are going to be active in free agency here, right? Look, if there's one thing I've learned since starting this thing 2008, 2009, and obviously didn't take you long to catch on either once you came on board, is how the Steelers do business in free agency, and then how not only that, how this team's going to do in free agency this offseason when you got really zero cap room, expected cap room to work with here. You've really got to be creative here, I think, in connecting the dots and players on the cheap and what the team's going to be looking for. And I kind of felt that I did that all the way around here. Is Kelvin Beachum a sexy name here? Absolutely not. But I mean, he is a guy that obviously came from your organization originally as a what was he, a 7th round draft pick?
Mm-hmm.
Outperformed expectations. Look, if he doesn't get injured during that, how many seasons ago? What was it, 2015 season or whatnot, where he suffered a knee injury and gave birth to, heck, Alejandro Villanueva hasn't missed a game since then.
Right. Hasn't missed a snap almost since
right. And would we have even gotten to that moment? Because I remember, I think Kelvin Beachum was a free agent after that year, right?
Yeah, wasn't that versus the Cardinals, I think?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely it was. It was week 7, week 8 or something like that. And, obviously the team didn't re-sign Kelvin Beachum that offseason. He went up, signed that contract with Jacksonville, and obviously has bounced around a few other places since then. You go back and look, last year alone, going over some tape real quick of his from the Cardinals, he didn't play bad at all, I didn't think, last year with the Cardinals. No. And he's like 30 or 31 right around in there. Look, this isn't a sexy connect the dots, and in all likelihood, I have a higher probability of missing on this than any of them. I mean, you throw one name like that out there this time of the offseason, especially an older one, the odds are you're going to miss. But as you kind of set up the conversation there, I mean, is Alejandro Villanueva going to be back? Probably not. As much as someone like yourself would like to see Matt Filer back and even do so at one of the tackle spots, what's the likelihood of that happening?
Yeah, I don't know what percentage to put on it, but obviously he could walk, and I mean that wouldn't shock anyone, I don't think.
I mean, and technically Zach Banner, we think Zach Banner is going to get re-signed on the cheap, but that hasn't happened yet, So if you look at the whole landscape of it right now, I mean, you basically got Chikwama Okorafor, we think maybe Banner, and what else? I mean, even Gerald Hawkins is a free agent. So, and the way I looked at this as well too, who would you rather have as your as a backup swing tackle? Kelvin Beachum or Gerald Hawkins? Heck, I thought Hawkins should have been a guard years ago. And he did okay. He didn't have obviously many snaps with the Steelers this past season there, and he did okay as an extra offensive lineman. But if given my druthers, I'd rather have a guy like Kelvin Beachum, who I know can play both tackle spots and hell, guard and center if I needed that to happen. So and that just goes back to connecting the dots to a guy like Adrian Clem. And Beachum played on the minimum contract, I think, or damn near close to it with the Cardinals last season. We'll see if the Cardinals want him back here in the next couple of weeks. If they don't, boy, be a great way for Kelvin Beachum to come home and end his NFL career by playing a season with the Steelers, and obviously knows the culture. And quite honestly, from where I sit right now, it wouldn't be a bad ad at all right now.
Yeah, depending on how this goes, but let's say a core four stay in at right tackle for whatever reason. Villanueva's gone, Filer's gone, and you still want to obviously draft a left tackle to replace Villanueva, but you want to sign a vet to compete with him, to learn from, and to be there in case that rookie isn't ready for whatever reason. And so if you want to sign Beachum and pair that with a first or second round pick, offensive tackle, that makes a lot of sense. And while obviously the talent and the player on the field matters most, Big Beacham's a great community guy. He's well liked, he's well respected, and he's not going to give you any concerns off the field. So that's another little bonus to have that veteran guy in your room, especially as you undergo this transition of potentially losing some of those leaders on the offensive line, losing Ramon Foster, potentially losing a Marquise Pouncey. You want some veteran guys in that room to show these young guys that are ascending, how to go about their business.
Right, because you're going to have a young tackle in that room.
Yeah. I mean, you're going to have a young, obviously, Dotson second year. I mean, a core four is not really young anymore, but yeah, you're going to have a couple rookies in that room, and you want some veteran leadership in there.
Right, and I mean, Beacham's become a little bit of a technician over the years as well too, and just a great guy all the way around. Period. Mm-hmm. I mean, why wouldn't you want him in your locker room? Is the question. Plus, I think he's still got the talent. Look, I wouldn't expect him to win a tackle job or start for you, but heck, I wouldn't have any problem with him being the next guy off the bench.
Right.
At least for one season. I'm not talking to sign him for a 3-year deal and all like that, but sometimes beggars can't be choosy, and the Steelers are really going to be in. Kevin Coleman's going to be in that dumpster early, I think. Really, Kevin, you might as well consider Kevin Colbert already out there in that dumpster right now. I mean, you look at some of these, and I guess probably another time to segue to talk about the reserve future guy that they signed yesterday.
Right, Avante Collins, who was brought in for a tryout or a workout or visit, whatever the term was, a couple weeks ago. Now is officially signed to the offseason roster. Former tackle out of TCU, I think, has kind of been profiled more of a guard for the NFL. I'm not sure exactly where he's been playing. Former, I believe, draft pick of the Vikings, UDFA, something like that. But a really athletic guy coming out of TCU, ran one of the fastest 40 times ever for an offensive lineman, for whatever that's worth to you. But just adding some offensive line depth for your offseason roster.
Yeah, look, when you look at this guy, especially go back to his college career at TCU, and then the limited amount of snaps he's had with the Vikings, and we wrote him up a couple of weeks ago when he was listed as a visitor there. I know he's listed as a tackle by the Steelers, but this guy has guard written all over him. And I think his final days, even in Minnesota there, he was in a battle for a roster spot as a backup left guard there, or even really a potential maybe starting left guard spot there. So the good thing is he's position flexible. Or at least you would think he has some position flexibility to him. Obviously, is a huge candidate to stick on the 53? Well, stranger things have happened, right? We don't like to use the word camp bodies anymore, and obviously you don't know how injuries are going to affect you. So you got to get guys surface level that that can do a few things, and like I stated in that post, I really would expect him to initially get a look at maybe left guard spot there, because this team could use some depth, especially during the offseason at the guard spots.
Yeah, you have to remember, when you go to training camp, you need 15, 16 offensive linemen on your roster to get through camp. And so you got to have the ability to round that out. And hopefully we'll be able to go to training camp this year and see where Collins is lining up.
Absolutely.
All right, Dave, speaking of coaches, I did an article this morning on Matt Canada. Now that he is officially the offensive coordinator, I wanted to take a deeper dive, even a deeper dive than we did last year when he was in quarterbacks coach, into what is Matt Canada's philosophy. And I found 2 coaching clinics, one in 2012 as he got hired to be Wisconsin's quarterback coach, offensive coordinator, and a 2017 coaching clinic he did at LSU, at least a transcription, or at least an article I read based off of it, and just had an article, detailing all kind of the core principles and ideals of Matt Canada. I don't know if there's anything earth-shattering that makes him unique from really any other coach in terms of the stuff we learned, but certainly learned some of his ideals about playing fast, dressing the same thing up, or dressing the same play up, but looking differently to a defense, whether that's a different personnel grouping or formation, some of the things that you've talked about on the show. And just to kind of reiterate, and I'll probably do a longer article on this or a separate article on this sometime later on, I think we're going to see a lot more pistol offense in 2021. I think that's kind of the best way to combine the things that are ideal to Matt Canada with a more downhill run game, ability to use play action with Ben's ideals of getting away from center, not having to be under center quite as often. So I think we're going to see plenty of the pistol offense in 2021.
I agree, and I look forward to seeing how many different things they can run out of the same personnel grouping and formations. I think that's key, especially when in today's look. Nobody's really hugely reinventing a lot of things. You do see a lot of these orbit motions and return motions and that aspect of it, but. Long and short of it, football's football, right? I mean, route concepts and all like that. Sure, some people are doing some interesting things when it comes into that, but a lot of these are still core principles. So, power runs are still power runs. Inside runs are still inside zone runs. Those kind of things. So, how different can you be out of being the same, in so many different looks? I think that's a lot of the key to today's NFL's today's offenses in the NFL overall. We obviously see guys like Sean McVay, Shanahan, those kind of guys. A lot of what you see is a lot of the same personnel groupings on the field, and them doing a lot of different things out of it. And then not only that, them doing good with self-scouting themselves and getting into because look, all of them get into tendencies here. All right, so how quickly can you catch on to your own tendencies and break them? For a big player to maybe in a game. So those are the kind of things that we're looking for. And I think one of the key things that you keep bringing up in this and have brought up in this is the pistol with Ben. So we'll have to go back through the tape this year and look at some of the charting that Tom's done to see exactly how much pistol maybe they did run this past season.
It was more than probably any other year in recent memory. Usually in years prior to 2020, it was just because, Ben was hurt. I think that game against the 49ers, a candlestick, where he had that really bad ankle injury. I think they used some pistol that game, but they actually kind of used it more of a base part of their offense in 2020. One of the slides that Canada had at Wisconsin was he said they have 3 basic runs at a pistol: power, inside zone, and pin and pull. So all things the Steelers run right now.
I'm a big power and pin and pull fan.
Yeah, getting Pouncey out on the hoof, as you like to say. And so I don't know if that's something that was exclusive for pistol or just his overall philosophy, but it was in that pistol category. And so again, those are things the Steelers already do. So you just marry what you do well and what's already in your playbook with your ideals. And then in the pass game, Canada's big on concepts and half-field reads and things like that. And a couple of the bullet points he said he explained on why he likes concepts in the pass game. He says it's quarterback friendly. The picture's constant. We can run the same route from multiple formations. So again, this is dressing things up that looks different, but they're actually the same. So it's different for a defense, but the same read for a quarterback. And he goes on to say the defense will prepare for multiple routes. We will have the same read and the same throw. So some of this was obviously tailored to the college game. That was a little bit more simplified, younger guys, obviously not Hall of Fame quarterbacks you're working with, but the overall philosophy was keep it simple, make it look different, make the defense overthink, let our guys play fast. And that is kind of his overall, core philosophy.
He's not going to have that mobile quarterback to deal with. I mean, to work with, right?
Right.
How much do you think? Jerome Bettis is given a lot of interviews this week, and he talked about Ben's mechanics and all like that. How do you think those changed a little bit throughout the season, especially once he suffered either one or two, or I don't know, the way you hear it for a couple weeks there, Ben had knee injuries to his 4 knees, the way it was being reported there. But how much do you buy into the notion that maybe the knee injury or injuries that Roethlisberger suffered in that game against Dallas played into mechanics dropping off even worse?
Yeah, I think it played a role, and we discussed that during the time. Bettis' comment, if remembering it correctly, was that just overall Ben has to get back to basics and fundamentals, and it's worth pointing out, and I don't think it got talked about enough, that Ben had to, and he admitted this in that documentary they did, he had to learn how to throw again coming off that injury. And that's a big process. And So that's something you point to and say maybe that was one thing that hindered Ben. But the counter to that would be, well, Ben got off to a really good start this year. I mean, it faded down the stretch, so it's not like he got off to a bad start while he was still kind of working out the fundamentals and kind of relearning himself. And after not having an offseason program and just kind of starting during training camp, I mean, it started out better than how it ended. So that wouldn't really lend itself to him having to kind of shake off the rust and learn the fundamentals and things like that. So that leads me to believe the knee injury was maybe a bigger factor in that than it was just the overall idea that Ben had to kind of learn how to throw again coming off the injury.
All right, and if indeed it wasn't really a knee injury and more arthritis, well, that's not going to get any better.
Right. Yeah, I don't know, like Ben always said, my knee's fine. I just have severe arthritis. I'm like, it's not making me feel a lot better about the situation, Ben.
And look, you don't have to be a mobile quarterback in today's. It obviously helps to especially when you're kind of quarterback that Ben was, or came into the league as being, and not so much mobile. What I mean, the ability to use athleticism to extend a play. I mean, let's face it, Ben's never been one that's going to take off and outside of maybe a run that he had at Miami, Ohio, that went for like 80 yards or something like that. I think really his other longest run in the NFL is like 30-something yards, and it's been like a decade.
Those days are even long gone.
A decade ago and all like that. So in essence, we people keep hating us, bringing up the word, the name Tom Brady and all, but you have to become Tom Brady. Like, you have to become a master of maneuvering in the pocket, and you have to be a master at knowing what you see across from the line of scrimmage from you. Pre-snap there. Now, Ben has made strides, obviously, in the second one of that. Heck, go back to the game against the Eagles earlier in the 2020 season there. Ben's smart. Ben knows what he sees and knows how to attack certain things there. So that aspect's fine, but you're still going to have some level of him. I firmly believe that you're going to have to get him to hold on to the ball a little bit longer at certain points. Now, obviously not play in, play out, but you've got to see that depth of target. You got to be able to have him push that football down the field more than he has. Heck, even going all the way back to 2018, to be quite honest with you. I mean, if you look at his average depth of target and moving forward, it hasn't all been that. Now, once again, is that a byproduct of the Todd Haley years and influence of getting the ball out? Potentially, but you got. There are going to be instances where you either have to max protect, and obviously that takes one out of your route combination there, or whatever. But you're going to have some instances where you expect Ben to hold on to the football more to be able to push the football down the field moving forward here. And that onus is going to go on Matt Canada, and obviously look to some degree Adrian Clem as well too, because they got to have the protection time to be able to do that. So and then obviously they're going to have to figure out a way to not have Ben drop back 40 times a game, and that means the run efficiency rate's going to have to go up.
Absolutely. So I just think overall, macro picture on Matt Canada, it is that simple offense. And it's not that, again, it's supposed to be simple for your offense. It's supposed to look complicated for the defense. So don't confuse simple with predictable necessarily, although, we'll see how things go. But just to be clear on that, because I've seen some people comment back and say, you can't have a simple offense that won't work in the NFL. That's true, but if you dress it up to look different and you're always keeping a defense guessing, as long as it's simple to your guys, that's how you win overall as an offense. That's what you're seeing with Sean McVay and Shanahan, the guys you mentioned earlier. And I just think overall, Canada's philosophy seems to be similar to the Steelers' philosophy on defense of keep it simple, not be super complicated, but let your playmakers make plays, let those guys play fast. And the Steelers' defense overall is not that complicated. Players talk about how easy it is to kind of pick things up because it's predicated on, just doing what you do well, not changing too much week to week, and just kind of letting your talent win out. I think that's Canada's philosophy on defense. Will it work? We'll see, but that's the philosophy.
We'll see. Big onus here. And look, if indeed, all signs obviously point to Roethlisberger coming back, and that's their single best. Him coming back is the single best chance that this team has to maybe compete for something. We'll see. We'll see. It's a big onus to put on. It's a big onus to fix all the way around. Aging quarterback, offensive line hasn't been great for 2.5 seasons now, and the running game. You look at the backs and all. I mean, heck, the signs are more and more pointing toward either an offensive lineman or heck, even a running back, as much as it goes against what I like to see. You can make strong arguments that it's going to be a tackle or a running back in the first round, period, end of story, at this point. And usually, I know Kevin Colbert will say, best player available, blah, 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 need versus, where does that intersect? Yeah, BS. If Art Rooney tells you to fix a running game, you're fixing that running game with either a offensive lineman or a running back, and you can sell that however you want to the rest of the fan base. We know which way that pick's going to go. One of two ways, probably.
Yeah, it's not a coincidence that the best player available is always a position of extreme need for the Steelers.
Magically, for like the last 8 or 9 years, it seems like that way.
Right. So the philosophy for me has always been where value and need intersect at the highest point, because you're always going to be focused on value, getting good talent, getting good ROI, but also addressing an area of need. It's going to help your team right away with how these rookies are playing day one across the league, including in Pittsburgh. So the BPA stuff is oversimplified. But Dave, you mentioned the run game and success rates and things like that.
Also probability of the last to how many picks have been defensive side of ball players. Sooner or later, it's like betting whether or not the Steelers will open up a regular season at home now. How many years now running has it been that they open up on the road? Sooner or later, we're going to get one of these right. Heads or tails is going to finally come up on the predicted side there. So within that, yeah, we expect it to be offensive side player of the ball, and don't hand me that. Oh, if you bypass on this player, you'll come to regret it 10 years down the line. That looks good on a bumper sticker, Kevin.
Yeah, we're the guys that play the same lotto numbers every single night, because you're saying, well, it's got to come up my numbers one of these times. That's
I really am that guy.
Are you really?
Yeah. Right. Same with Keno out here. Like, I love playing Keno. And
what is Keno? I've heard of it. I know what Keno is.
Man, it's an old lady. It's an old lady game. And it's so funny to see all these old people sitting in the Keno rooms pre-pandemic, obviously, and then there's me.
Well, what is it? Like, is it a slot? Is it a card game? I have no idea.
It's imagine 80 ping pong balls in numbered 1 through 80 in basically a ping pong ball air in one of those lotto machines and all. And what they do every game, you have 80 balls. They draw 20 every game, and then there's just multiple of bets that you can, cards that you fill out and all like that, trying to predict. It's almost lotto-like, I guess.
Mm-hmm. It sounds very lotto-like.
Right. You can, if you wanted to, you could put a bet down on say, I think the number 2 ball will be one of the 20 balls that are drawn. You can put a bet down on that. Now, obviously, it doesn't return because the probability factor is high that you'll get 1 out of 20 right. But you can bet it all, however many in different ways. You can box them, and there's different ways that you can do it. Just a fascinating numbers game, and I'm all, me, I'm numbers and I'm probability and those kind of things. So those kind of games attract me like flies to poop.
Well, speaking of numbers, you and Brad teamed up for a great article breaking down, and you can explain this a lot better than I can because you guys teamed up for the project. Just the value of a run game. Is the run game dead? Does it still hold any sort of place in the NFL, or have we moved on to a passing league only? And some of the data that you guys showed highlighted that the run game is not dead. You just have to look at the run game differently in terms of measuring the success of it in today's NFL. But I'll let you explain kind of what that post look to do and what the results were.
Yeah, and not so much me. It was more. I asked Brad. I said if asked him if he would attack this based on a tweet that we saw from a major media member this week. I hate when people, especially major media, try to frame things around archaic stats such as rushing yards per game or rushing yards per carry. If you're listening to this podcast and you still like to reference yards per carry and yards per game, man, you found the wrong podcast because those are just archaic, and it gets me that the league still and major media sites ranks those things because anyway, long story short was the justification was, well, you don't need a running game. Just look at where the Buccaneers and the Chiefs ranked this year in both yards per game and yards per carry. And okay, yeah, they ranked in the bottom third of the league. Obviously, I think in those two categories there. But when you dive down, and one thing that you know me, I love looking at run success rates, and I forever have, for many years at least, have pumped the aspect of it's not how many times you run and how many yards you run. It's how successful you are running. If you can get 4 yards or more on 1st and 10. That's huge. I don't care if you do it 20 times a game or if you just do it 4 times a game. It's all about run success rates more so than it is total amount and total amount of yards. Because look, you could have your team run for 100 yards a game, and one of those runs be 60 yards. Okay, well, if that 60-yard run came on 3rd and 3rd and 10 or late in the game or whatever, and it doesn't end up in a touchdown, how good was that run? And what'd you do on the other, let's say, 21 runs that you had in the game? If those weren't successful, what have you really done? Yeah, you made your yards per carry look good. Yeah, you made your overall yards per game number look good, but down in, down out, were you successful? And that's obviously been one of the issues the Steelers have had for, what have we said, two and a half seasons now at least here. But anyway, had Brad look at that along with, my other favorite stat, adjusted net yards per passing attempt. And once again, all this was based off of one tweet that you can see in the post that Brad put together on this. But look, were we surprised by the results? Absolutely not. I mean, the run game isn't dead, but successful rates and efficiency, obviously, in both the categories of run success rates and adjusted net yards per passing attempt, definitely proves, and he's got data going all the way back from 2010 to 2020 that these kind of things matter here. So, and you want to kind of apply this to the Steelers situation moving forward past this season. Ben had an okay, or the Steelers offense had an okay adjusted net yards per passing attempt number. That number would have been even better had the Steelers had run success rates to go with it. They didn't, they obviously didn't. They finished third to last in overall run success rates in 2020. I mean, and here's the funny thing about it. One of the two teams that had a worse run success rate than the Steelers did were the Denver Broncos. And who's the offensive line coach there?
Mike Munchak.
Right. So, frame that however you want to frame it there. But it just goes to show that this team, and if you look at even the Buccaneers and the Chiefs this year, run success rates based on down and overall rank and all like that. The Buccaneers, they were good in certain situations. They weren't necessarily good on first down, but across the board on second down and obviously third and fourth down rating. What did you scream halfway through the season on? Man, this team's horrible. Talking about the Steelers offense on short yardage, especially third and fourth down conversion run rates there.
The worst, not only horrible, but the worst in football.
Right. I mean, you're talking about key instances in down. There's got to be a study there. And look, if you look at third and fourth down run success rates for the Chiefs just this past season, not great overall, but that's just overall third and fourth down. How many times during the season did maybe the Chiefs run on third and fourth, maybe in long situations when they had games in hand, maybe, if you take some of those things out. Now, overall, really, we know as a whole, the Chiefs weren't great on as a running team, but they didn't have to be when you have Patrick Mahomes and having one of the highest adjusted net yards per passing attempt number in the league there. So read this. I think you'll learn a lot. Did Brad's look? There's so many different ways you can still go with all these stats, and with his ability now to dig down deeper into some of these things here, but. Long and short of it, I was one of the happiest men on the face of the earth here a couple of days ago, because he effectively took two of my favorite stats, married them together, and really put a lot of emphasis on those and how important it is to run successful, and you better have an adjusted net yards per passing attempt number of greater than 6.25 at the very minimum. And if you do, if it is going to be that low, you better be able to run behind it successfully. And the Steelers, unfortunately, were not able to do that, or haven't been able to do that in a couple of years now.
Right. No, I think it was a great way to break it down in that just analytical fashion, but also I think easier to understand than just throwing all the numbers at it. And then in terms of run success rate, I think that was really valuable because the numbers are always important with having context. And it looks like the average was around 54%. And so at the very least, that should be the number Pittsburgh's shooting for, the best in the league. It looks like the Saints at 61%, but
how
you got to at least
crazy
be
is that?
I know. I'm not sure how they did that, but kudos to them. Because the next closest is like Green Bay at 57 something percent. So a huge margin between first and second. But for Pittsburgh, you at least got to be in the low to mid 50s to that should at least be your goal for 2021.
I think one of the next things I want to see, and the thing is, we're limited a little bit on some of this data that he does, but I mean, on as far as going back further than, let's say, 2010, with some of this play-by-play data and all like that. But within that anyway, I mean, the game has changed so much since, say the last time the Steelers won a Super Bowl, right? I mean, it's no longer, in other words, adjusted net yards per passing attempt has never been more important than it is over the course of the last 10, 11 years, right? Because of the ability of the passing game to go downfield, and it's a passing league now. Whereas 11 years ago it was more balanced, I think, overall there. But what's going to be interesting, I think, to find out is maybe over the last 10 years, what has been the minimum maybe success rate a team that has gone on to win a Super Bowl, or at least be in the Super Bowl, has had, right?
Right. Yeah. I agree. I'm just looking over the post right now and just being able to correlate the importance of the NAYA and how much of a clear correlation there is between that and winning percentage. And he says like it's as close as anything you're going to find to finding that pure correlation. And so that is such an important number that I think backs up all the things you've talked about for several years now.
But it's not surprising, right? You have to have a good passing game in today's NFL. It's not like it's not like I touched the moon here, know.
But you hit the stat. I mean, that is the stat. If you're going to look at one stat to determine if a team is successful or not, like that is as good as any.
Right. And the thing about the adjusted net yards per passing attempt stat is it takes in takes into account touchdown passes, it takes into account yardage, it takes into account interceptions and sacks. So that's the thing about the stat that is, because before that, the hot thing before this was yards per attempt, right? Remember when that was kind of about 6, 7, 8 years ago? That was the big thing. Was yard. Let's look at yards per attempt stat and all. Well, this obviously is taking it to the next level there with obviously with the work that Chase has done over there at Football Perspective and all like that. I've just been fascinated by that stat, obviously, for years now, and the predictability off that. I mean, 6, 7 weeks into the season, I can tell you whether or not a Steeler team is going to have a chance to compete for a Super Bowl. I mean. And I want to be able to get that way with run success rates as well. And I think that's one of the things that's next up for Brad, is to kind of dig deeper into maybe some predictive things when it comes to maybe run success rates, say 6, 7, 8 weeks into a season, because obviously things like that don't magically get better halfway through the season on, right?
Right. Unless there is some weird outlier injury or something like that. But yeah, not too often. So yeah, really good post. Glad you guys did it. I think the feedback was well received. I know it's very stat heavy and can be a little niche, but I think that's just great information that we can rely on and look at and quantify in a way we haven't been able to do before.
I tell you, the embarrassing thing is, though, I mean, even if you don't like to get into all the numbers and percentages and all like that, just look where the Steelers logo is on that chart.
Yeah, tells you all you need to know.
I mean, if they, and once again, I am not a huge fan of drafting a running back early, first round. By early, anytime I say early in running back, I mean first round. There. But, man, if there ever was a reason to think that the Steelers might do it this year, it would be right now, especially when you look at that running room. And it also makes you want to throw things, break stuff in your own room right now. When you look at this team has spent draft picks the last, four drafts on running backs, all of which are probably going to be within another 2 years are going to be on the pile,
Mm-hmm.
God bless Benny Snell. I hope he gets a chance to maybe change the narrative this upcoming season, but obviously won't if they draft a running back first or second round. And then, as much as we were able to kind of justify the selection of Anthony McFarland this past year because of him being a different kind of three backs in one, poor man's Alvin Kamara. I mean, what good is it? What good is it? His selection going to be if you end up selecting that first or second round back this year?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, obviously you want to have rotation potentially in depth and injuries. You don't want to have that lead guy and put all your eggs in that basket. And if he gets hurt or whatever the case is, then you're really in a bad spot. So I think that depth is important. But yeah, this team has obviously been drafting mid-round backs for the last 4 straight years, and this is probably the year they cranked it up a notch and go day 1 or day 2. It's a running back position. If it's not Najee Harris, is there any other running back that you've watched or read about or learned about that would fit what you think the Steelers are looking for? Because we know they're going to love Harris and he'll be in the mix, and we'll see if he's there at 24 and all that. But is there any other running back worth mentioning early at this point?
By early, you mean first round? Because that's where it begins and ends with me.
Well, some people could say, ETN at a Clemson, but first or second, day 1, day 2 is, I guess, where I'm the scope I'm looking at the running back position.
Well, I've got to get myself. I've got to find a way to get myself out of early just being first round and that it. I mean, to me, from what I've seen so far, is it's Najee Harris, and then that's it. That's a discussion.
Okay, so if he's gone, because he could be gone easily.
Well, then someone, one I'm in the second round. I mean, that next tier, and I think there's like 3 or 4 in there, and obviously Etienne's in there. But once again, how good of an all? My view is if you're going to get one, first round and really even second round, it better be one that you're not afraid to pull off the field. Period on. And I think there's some aspect of Etienne's game that, I don't know if I want him out there blocking, in certain instances and all.
Yeah, we know Pittsburgh still likes the bigger backs. So could it be, Hubbard from Oklahoma State? Could it be a Trey Sermon from Ohio State? Someone like that. Javonte Williams, North Carolina. If they want to go with a bigger back, I mean, those would be the names to probably look at on day 2.
Right. And they have a type. Right? I mean, you've proven that year in, year out. You've proven it so much that other people posted up there like they created it now.
Yeah, but I mean, McFarland did break that mold. It did make you take a step back and say, well, maybe they're going to look in a different direction because they want playmakers. And Matt Canada, to reference that clinic, was like, we want playmakers. We want someone who's dynamic, and this run game needs some of that. So, I mean, you can find a bigger back who can be dynamic, but we've seen this team take a lot of 220-pound plotters before, and it hasn't worked out the way they wanted it to.
Whoever they get, if they draft one early, it's got to be one they can put out on the field, and you just got to keep your fingers crossed. Whoever that kid is can stay healthy, because one of the things that gets it's one thing if you couldn't easily draw, and I did in a tweet not too terribly long ago. You look at the early round running backs drafted the last 3-4 years, how many games have they missed? You might as well count on about, in the first 3 years of that running back's career, him missing like 15% of the games at a minimum, for one reason or the other. That's a lot of That's a lot of eggs to put in a basket on that position. Now,
Right, well, that's why you need a McFarland type as a backup in case, whenever that running back gets hurt, that's
yeah. Okay, I mean, and I understand. Look, you could draft a tackle first round, he'd tear up his knee, first practice. But I mean, I'm just talking about probabilities and ball touching and those kind of things. You just look at it, over time when it comes to these first round backs. Really, any back that gets any work, period. Oh, look at Philip Lindsay over there in Denver. Sooner or later, that X amount of carries, that stuff starts catching up to him,
right, and it did. It has.
Right, and what does it say about? Look, no matter how good of offensive line coach or offensive coordinator that you have, it goes back to the old, I guess, the Keith Butler talk here. How good a coach is Keith Butler versus how good a talent he had or has? Mm-hmm. What came first?
Yeah, there's always that mix. Is it the coaching that brings out the talent? Is it the talent that brings out the coaching? Obviously, in a lot of respects, there's plenty of overlap there, but that is always the debate that we've had.
So I guess you could say the talent on the Steelers' offensive line overall, tackle to tackle, mixed in with running back, with the Steelers' last 3 years. I mean, I think you could easily point to it being below average. I mean, especially this past year. I mean, for God's sakes. I mean, look how many games you had. Who knows what look, Filer wasn't the left guard that they obviously thought he could be. He obviously got injured. Dotson was a breath of fresh air when he was in there. But how many games did you have J.C. Hassenauer in there? How many snaps did you have him in there? And obviously Marquise Pouncey hasn't been the Marquise Pouncey of 7 years ago, in quite some time. David DeCastro definitely had a down year. Chukwuma Okorafor and Alejandro Villanueva, as good of a technician he is as a pass protector, he's never been even an above average run blocker because his mobility there. So, when a lot of that group's getting a year older this year anyway, which brings to light the aspect that we firmly expect this team to address the offensive line not only once but possibly twice in this year's draft, along with the running back position.
No, I agree. How important do you think it's going to be for them to draft a back who can catch and kind of be potential that every down piece that can flex out and run routes and be an option in the pass game for the Steelers?
Once again, if you're going to do it, do it early, first, second round. Go ahead, do it, but get one that can do it all. Mm-hmm. That's my thought on it. Even if you're only going to get 3 years out of them, don't settle for here. Go get one first, second round, and just hope he can stay healthy. But no way would I do one. I try to get one of the top 2 or 3 all around backs, period, because that back needs to be on the field, period.
Do you know who that number 2 or number 3 in this class is?
Not yet. No.
Not yet. Okay.
That's why I say it's Najee Harris, and then it drops off from what I've seen so far. And I obviously will get into more contextualization, play by play. But I mean, I can look at a highlight tape and say, "Oh boy, look at that." But I mean, that we're not doing anybody justice by just talking about a prospect's highlight tape.
Yeah, no.
Let the other sites do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was just trying to find some potential day 2 options, guys who could catch. That's why I had kind of Gainwell in my mock draft. And one guy that I'll report on for tomorrow morning is Kylan Hill at Mississippi State. We had a reader email us on Monday's show talking about Kylan Hill, so I wanted to go look at him. Interesting guy. He got stuck in the Mike Leach air raid offense, and so he only played 3 games. Really, he technically played 3, but he really only played 2 games this year. And he had 23 receptions in those 2 games. Only had 15 carries. And then he opted out for the rest of the season. But that's a guy that can catch a football, kind of a bowling ball build at 5'10", 210, whatever he weighed in at. So I don't know if he'd be the pick or like an every down guy, but he was kind of interesting because he had to basically function like a receiver, even though he was a running back.
Trey Sermon's another one that at least on the surface look at him looks like he could be that kind of guy.
Yeah, why is he viewed as a day 3 guy? Is there a specific
I
knock
haven't
in his
figured that
game?
out yet. No, I haven't figured that out yet.
Okay, I know we have. I think Tom's doing the report on Trey Sermon sometime in the near future, so be on the lookout for that. But yeah, we talk about the running back position heavily, obviously, throughout the draft process.
I mean, you look at him overall, boy. He's got if you want to look at guys that did it a lot in college, he's got that resume, right?
Mm-hmm.
Talk about Trey Sermon, but on top of it, he went out of the he left the national championship game early with an injury on top of it there. So how much of that wear and tear of that? Heck, I think he's probably got around 500 college carries at this point, pretty damn near close to it, probably. I don't think Ohio State's ever really used their running backs too much in the passing game. Period. So it's kind of hard to judge him from that aspect. I think he can catch the ball, but it's not like he's got. I don't remember him having anything more than about 50 total receptions in college there. So, but he's more of a guy second or third round. I think that would kind of fit the bill there for the Steelers.
Almost nailed the receptions. 48 career receptions between Oklahoma and Ohio State. 455 career carries over.
Okay, so I said 500 and what did I say? 500 and what? 50?
50. Yeah,
okay.
It's 455 and 48, so pretty much on the money there. But a big guy. I mean, that kind of fits the more classic mold of what the Steelers are looking for. But I don't know. I mean, I just want someone who's dynamic, someone who can make big plays. I feel like this run game does not have that. And if your offensive line still isn't great, if you get a running back that can occasionally pop a big 40-yard play or take a screen and go 30-plus yards, I think that'll be a big jolt for this offense.
And that's something else that we don't talk about enough sometimes. I don't think is look, you don't expect a running back, to house these things, 80 yards, every other week. But anytime you get an explosive run or an explosive, or let me put it in a different order, an explosive catch or an explosive run. The explosive run is obviously a lot more rare, but anytime you get one of those in a game, that's stealing, man. I mean, it literally is stealing if you have a back run for 20 yards at least once in a game, in my opinion. Right?
Especially for a Steelers offense that is very much dink and dunk. Where are you going to get your big plays from? Obviously, you can get some of those in the pass game, catch short and run long, but you got to create some big plays somewhere. I mean, you can't win many games when your longest play total from scrimmage was like 19 yards. Look at the top offenses. They create big plays. They change your circumstances in an instant with that big 70-yard play, changes the course of a game, get you back in, it extends the lead, whatever the case is. And so this offense, I think, for me, the focus is on finding someone for the skill positions, find someone who's dynamic, someone that can win in space, make big plays. And if you want to have that catch short, run long philosophy, a running back who can take a swing pass or a screen pass and go 50 yards is extremely valuable.
Extremely valuable. And I don't care if you only – here's the thing. It goes back to it doesn't matter about the number of times that you run. It goes back to run success rate, play success rate. So if you have – let's say you have a back and you only have to give it to him 18 times a game. If he has a high success rate when you do give it to him, and then, he popped one for 20 or 80 or whatever, I mean, that's what you're looking for right there. So – and boiling it back to a guy like Trey Sermon. Now here's the other thing. Not all explosive plays in college are the same, or explosive runs, I should say, in college. You go back and look at who's the Ravens running back?
J.K. Dobbins.
Yeah, you look at a lot of and I contextualize a lot of his runs. A lot of his stuff, man. He was and the other kid out of Washington, Jonathan Taylor, as well too. It's hard to quantify explosive runs when they come through truck holes. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Give me the guy that can create the explosive play not only through the truck hole, but the guy that creates it via a nice jump cut or breaking an arm tackle or two at the line of scrimmage. Now, I think Dotson did that a lot more coming out than if memory serves me than the Wisconsin kid did. All right, so you just can't look at the raw stats of it and say, oh man, look how many explosive runs this kid had in college. You got to go look at the explosive runs, and I will. Now, one thing that jumps out of me, talking about Trey Sermon, just last year alone, 27 runs of 10 yards or more, and he had 11 of 20 or more. And you jump back to 2019 on him, 14 of 10 yards or more, and he had 5 of 20 or more. And heck, even go back to 2018 on him, 27 runs of 10 yards or longer, and 9 of 20 or longer. We need to go look at those runs, specifically.
Yeah, because there weren't a lot of carries. You said how many in 2019? How many carries of 10-plus yards? 14?
In 2019, he had 14 of 10 or more on just 54 runs.
Right. But again, what is the context for those plays? I think this one's right. Who's not any back can run through the truck hole, as you said. Who can run through the pinhole? Who can has that small little gap and be able to create or make a big play or get skinny through the hole and bust out the other side. So that is the context of those plays matters as much as the number of those plays.
And look, Taylor had a good rookie season. I thought with the Colts more than anything, he held on to the football, which was key for him because that's one of the knocks coming out of him, though. Right. People get caught up with the highlight plays of a guy like him and Dotson going 80 yards, but and it's just all process of scouting better as you go along here. Go back and look how that run happened. Was it a result of a nice cut and seeing a hole, or was it just a wide open hole? Which was the case quite a bit in a lot of those Wisconsin runs that Taylor had there. Now Dotson, I think there was more evidence him of breaking.
It's Dobbins. You're saying Dobbins?
Dobbins. I don't know.
Are you getting the vision of Kevin Dotson running the football?
Yeah. Dobbins. Dobbins. The thing with him, I think that sticks out in my head was of going back and contextualizing a lot of his runs was that there was a lot of arm tackle. A lot of broken tackles, at least 6 yards within the line of scrimmage there. So give me that back. He might have a smaller, a lower explosive run rate, but if he's getting those off of creating them within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage, that's the guy that I think you can focus in. But anyway, this all boils back to, man, it's stealing in the NFL if you can get a running back that can bust off 8, 9, 10 explosive runs in an NFL season, a la, let's say, a Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb is really the quintessential kind of back, I think, to kind of have right now in today's NFL.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite backs in football to watch, and one of the best. But either way,
well, you go back to Le'Veon Bell. What was one of the big knocks? I mean, Le'Veon Bell was a great running back during his time with the Steelers. But what was one of the biggest knocks on Le'Veon Bell during his career as a Pittsburgh Steeler?
No explosive plays in the run game.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, is that a byproduct of the system, or the player, or both, or what? That's the kind of things you need to look at.
Yeah, combination of a lot of things, I'm sure. Anyway, so good conversation there. One will certainly continue throughout the rest of draft season. Dave, let's do
you've looked at the surface type. You've obviously got a report coming out on another running back this week. What jumps out to you outside of past the Alabama kid?
In terms of running backs, other prospects I like? Yeah, I mean, like I said, I mock Kenneth Gainwell. I think he may not be the prototypical 6 foot, 215-pound running back, but he's a playmaker. He can catch. I think he fits well that Matt Canada system, doing some jet stuff, some perimeter runs, things like that, things I've talked about in the past. Got a report on Chuba Hubbard. I think is interesting. I think Trey Sermon is another option. Kylan Hill, like I said, the report's going to come out on him, I think, for Thursday, and he's a guy that again, played in that Leach system for one season, has really good ball security, only one career fumble in college. So that's going to be an important trait, obviously, looking for a running back. So I think this running back class overall is really talented. There's a lot of depth there. So if you can't get a Najee Harris at 24 because he goes 5 picks high or whatever the case is, there will be talent for them to take on day 2. And I fully expect by the end of day 2, they drafted a running back either on day 1 or in round 2 or round 3. All
right, before you switch gears one last time, from what you have seen so far in looking at some of these running backs, look, it's still way, way early on this. So, obviously not going to hold you to it. But is there, other than Najee Harris, is there a back that makes you say, man, that's a first round, boy, if he's on the board there for the Steelers at 24, it's going to be hard to bypass him, other than Najee Harris?
Yeah, Harris, I'm in that camp. I don't know about ETN yet. I haven't gotten his tape far enough yet. But the other running backs I've watched, there's a lot of guys I like. No one else that I would put in that first round camp though.
And my thought is, if man, and obviously I haven't gotten into ranking these guys and across the board position wise, but my thought is, man, if Najee Harris is that much head and shoulder, because that's where I'm at right now. Obviously, as you can tell, it's Najee Harris, and then that next group of 3 or 4, right? If Najee Harris is that by far and away, you know, the guy in the running back class this year, it makes you kind of wonder if he's still going to be on the board there at 24.
Yeah, I mean, basically the question is, how early do you think the first running back is going to go? You know, if it's top 20, then it's probably Harrison. Probably means he's not going to be there. So will the first running back last until pick 24? Hasn't that ever happened before? I think, but I'd have to look at the data on that.
On the first running back still being
how many times has the first running back gone 24th or later in a draft? I mean, it's probably happened in recent memory, but as you mentioned, Josh Jacobs, I mean, Saquon Barkley, generally speaking, the first running back goes before pick 24, even in this day and age of the position being less valuable.
Right.
But
it goes back to my theory of all it takes is one team.
Right. And it just eventually probably comes into a value thing. Do you want to take the 5th best tackle or the top running back? And some people say, well, the grade and the value, turns to running back eventually as you get into the 20s. But anyway, let's do our almost annual episode of a cap update. Not as much to talk about today, but we do want to note a report that came out from the Sports Business Journal, I believe, with Clark Hunt saying, and who knows, no one knows anything right now. Anyone who says they know what's going to happen is lying to you. But Clark Hunt was quoted as saying that teams may not know what the salary cap is until hours before the new league year begins, as they have to go through all the process of trying to determine what that number is going to be and whatever negotiations happen to help determine that number. And so that would be a worst case scenario for teams where they only have a couple hours to react to what the cap is. And I just can't see any way the league could put every team in that position of just, 4 or 5 hours before the new league year begins, before you have to get cap compliant. Here's the cap number. That just seems almost irresponsible for the league to do. It's
hard for me to wrap my brain around that report. It's a tiny brain, but I mean how do you expect a team to deal? I mean, you would literally have to have restructures and different scenarios of contracts already signed and lined up, ready to process, and say, okay, go. Hurry up, get that get that email.
They have fax machines, right? The fax machines would be overloaded. They couldn't handle that.
Panic, Yeah. I'm having a hard time processing and envisioning something like that. In other words, on the BS meter, I think that's high. Now, maybe they get the final number based on already being told it's going to be within, I don't know, 800,000 maybe. But other than that, it's hard to believe a report like that. To me, that stinks more of the NFL leaking out that kind of the owners trying to give that appearance to set up scenarios where they'll use them as bargaining chips with the NFLPA to maybe negotiate some sort of higher number. You see what I'm getting at there?
But it hurts everybody if the cap's only found out hours. It hurts teams and organizations because they don't know what they're doing.
They're going to know what it is. They're just going to use it as a bargaining chip. Look, we'll set it lower or higher, based on you're going to give us another game here or preseason game. You know what I'm saying? It stinks of some sort of manipulation, information manipulation on the owner, on the league's part, because knowing that they're going to be able to maybe potentially use it as a bargaining chip against the NFLPA.
It just feels like a scare tactic to let's get this number figured out.
Exactly. That's a better. That's a better way maybe to put it, a scare tactic, and obviously it would be on the league's end than it would the players' end. So I just can't imagine any scenario like that.
Right, and if they did a scenario like that, they would have to have some sort of clause that extends the length of time it takes for a team to get cap compliant. What that is, I don't know. If that would be you can remain you don't have to be cap compliant until you go out there and actually physically sign a contract for somebody in free agency or something like that. Maybe you could do something like that, but there's no way you could literally only give team 6 hours to get cap compliant. That would just be impossible.
Right. It really would. And I mean, someone said, well, what's next? Are we going to have some sort of show, annual show, a cap number release show? The NFL will make a show out of anything, right?
Right.
Well, yeah, I'd watch it.
You might be the only one. I don't know if I even would. But I think to Hunt's point, and maybe the broader thing to take away from that is it may still be a while before we know what that cap number is. Hopefully a lot sooner than hours before the start of the new league year, but that number may not be coming known to anybody anytime soon.
Once again, I don't see how within the next couple of weeks, I mean, that's what you pay freaking accountants for, right? I mean,
right.
I don't know how within, let's say, because we got to actually 6 weeks from today, Alex? How about that? 6 weeks from today is the start of the new league year. You can't tell me that within three weeks from now that you're not going to have the data in and then the projections in for with the pandemic and all like that. You can't tell me that you're not going to have a good sense of what the cap number is going to be 3 weeks from now. You just can't. There's not today's information age, no. I mean, if this was 15 years ago, all right, maybe. But, I mean, we're at a data, statistics, numbers, aged now. Heck, I got a guy that works for Steelers Depot now that in a moment's notice, I got a data, what do they call these guys? Data scientist or data... I've got one that works for Steelers Depot. How crazy is that? Take that, old man. You can't tell me that the league can't get in a situation where 3 weeks from now they don't have a good idea where the cap number is. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, what other information are they lacking that they can't come up? I mean, it was a negotiation, I understand that, but they have basically all their financial information known, including Super Bowl revenue projections and things like that. So what information are they waiting on to come up with this critical number for the entire league? Really?
Right. I mean, am
I missing something?
I don't think you are. I think we're being fed a line of what.
Yeah. So, but we'll see. Hopefully, again, sooner than later on the cap number, but again, nobody knows is the takeaway of this right now. So let's transition, Dave. On Monday's show, we did the unrestricted Steelers free agents to be for the offense. Today, we can do it for the Pittsburgh Steelers defense. I think obviously there are some more marquee and just more names in general for the Steelers offense, who are guys that are about to hit free agency, but there are obviously some important names for the defense as well, including Mike Hilton, Cam Sutton, Bud Dupree, etc. So we can kind of run through those and see what our expectations are for which guys stay, which guys go, and how much those guys could cost.
All right, top of the list, obviously, Bud Dupree. We've said it for quite a while now. We find there no really truly plausible way, injury and all, definitely before the injury and really even since the injury. I mean, yeah, we both agree that that the injury is going to push Bud Dupree's market value down. How far down though is it going to get pushed? And John Clayton out there speculating that it's going to be 1 year, $6 million or whatnot. Good luck with that. And even if it is 1 year, $6 million, how can the Steelers get themselves in a position where they can afford a luxury? And that's what it would be. Bud Dupree on a 1 year contract for $6 million is a luxury, like it or not. And I just don't see any way whatsoever Bud Dupree is retained by the Steelers this offseason. It'd be nice. Look, I throw a parade if it happens. Because it's a good problem to have Bud Dupree back at any number, in my opinion. But I just don't see the way it happens in any way with Bud Dupree.
Yeah, there's two things that will happen to Dupree this offseason. One, he'll either get, his market value won't be affected too much, and he'll still take a multi-year deal, which Pittsburgh they could probably afford that, but they're unlikely to do. Or he'll have to take the 1 year prove-it deal to some number, probably higher than the $6 billion Clayton speculating. But in that case, the Steelers will not have any way to fit that under the cap because there's no way to push that money to a second year if it's a 1 year contract. So I don't really see a scenario in which Bud Dupree returns.
Also, if you re-sign Bud Dupree, how the heck are you going to be able to get J.J. Watt signed?
There you go. Yeah. All right.
Mike Hilton's the next one on the list. Boy, if anybody deserves to get paid from this defense this year, finally hit the big payday, is poor Mike Hilton. And I'm rooting for him, man. Quintessential kind of Steeler, if you will. Man, a linebacker in a cornerback's body, if you ask me. Sometimes the way he plays against the run, he got caught in that Steelers trap that they like to set, right? That get them undrafted, get them after they've been discarded, run them through the exclusive rights restricted free agents ringer. As long as you can, and then when they come out the other side of it, you just, shrug your shoulders and let them run off and get paid. And I have a feeling that's going to happen to Mike Hilton. And Mike Hilton should not settle for this offseason. He should go get what he should get. And I think at a minimum, that number should be about $7 million per season. Once again, another guy, I think you throw a parade if you're able to get him back. I just don't see a way that you make it happen.
Yeah, I'm not seeing the path either. And you're right, he deserves to get paid. I agree with everything you said. He should be one of the highest paid nickel corners in football, and that's more likely to happen with some other team, not Pittsburgh. So I would love for him to come back. He's such a problem solver in terms of, you can just be so flexible with how you use him and how you match up personnel. But I just don't see it's more realistic than Dupree, but I don't like the odds of Hilton coming back. They're pretty low.
Is the guy just a byproduct of the type player he is because he's in the Steelers system? I don't know. I suppose some are. But the Steelers have a long history of bringing these guys up through this route, them going off and getting paid a year or 2 years, and then all of a sudden
you call him Chris Hubbard.
Yeah, there you go. Those kind of players there. But I
think the Steelers maximize his skill set. I don't know if any other team will do that as well, but I think he can have success outside the Steelers system.
Right. I mean, he's a good gritty player. Now, how much? I guess the question becomes how much longer can he do it? Now, but I would think at least a couple more years he could do it. So you just got to take your hat off and hand it to him, as Hines Ward would say, and wish him luck and send him out the door. And I think that's where he's going.
Well said.
Next one on the list, Cameron Sutton. If there was any one player maybe out of this whole offense, defense, unrestricted, and really a kind of a guy I think you've kind of championed, if you will, at potentially maybe being that one guy, really going back start of this past season here, that maybe you can get back cap situation at all. It's Cameron Sutton.
Yeah, I think of the two, it's the more economical approach. In a vacuum, who would I take, Mike Hilton or Cam Sutton? I've said I would lean Mike Hilton, but I think the goal is to at least just get one of those guys back, and Sutton will be your nickel cornerback that can still play on the outside if you need to. A really smart guy, obviously having 2 really strong seasons, forcing 3 fumbles this year was a pleasant surprise. His tackling, his physicality, his run support has improved, although not at the Mike Hilton level. He's a really strong, smart cover corner, and he's just one of the smartest guys on the field for Pittsburgh. So hopefully you can get him back. I think you can though, unless that number comes in cap wise at the floor. If it comes in anything higher than that, I think you can reasonably create a path to bring back Cam Sutton.
93.7, the fans is trying their best to put out content during the offseason here. It's real lazily done. It's horrible content, quite honestly, along with a lot of their interviews so far this offseason, Ed Bouchette being one of them there. Did I frame that properly?
You framed it.
Okay.
Coming in hot.
Anyway, yeah, I mean, I don't, you know me, I don't mind calling a spade a spade. I hate to see, if you hate your job that much, you put out content like this, why even do it, But they had a short little post on Cameron Sutton, I think yesterday, saying their expectation is the Steelers will re-sign Cameron Sutton by cutting one of their 2 veteran cornerbacks. I mean, okay, who? Give me a little bit more than that. Could you see the Steelers cutting Steven Nelson or Joe Hayden and they didn't even name me either one. You're supposed to know who they're talking about there, but I mean, it's so, once again, it was lazy content. Could you see either one of those 2 players being cut to retain Cameron Sutton?
Nelson, no. I know a lot of people have said, cut Joe Hayden to bring back Cam Sutton. But I don't think I don't think you have to cut Joe Hayden to bring back Cam Sutton. I think we've created paths to, because what will be Cam Sutton's first year cap hit?
Low.
3 million.
Yeah. Maybe $3 million, right around in there.
I don't think you have to go cut your starting left quarterback to fit that under the cap. If you do, then the cap's really got you in bad shape. And again, even if you wanted to do that, and then I assume that Sutton would now take over the left cornerback spot to replace Hayden. Well, who's your nickel corner? I mean, you're just it's kind of a wash. I mean, you could argue that Sutton's better than Hayden by a little bit right now, and that's fine and fair. But your team really hasn't gotten a whole lot better. So keep Hayden for one more year. Have Sutton in the slot. Maybe next year Sutton kicks back outside. But I mean, if you sign Sutton and you cut Hayden, then you're just trying to find a slot cornerback all over, and it's almost like losing Cam Sutton and Mike Hilton and keeping Joe Hayden, where you just have this big void in the slot. So I don't think it really makes your team a whole lot better to do that.
Who has the best value? Joe Hayden at $7 million or Vince Williams at $4 million?
It's a good question. Maybe I'm a little biased here, but I'm leaning Vince as the better value.
Oh wow, I didn't expect that. To me, it's
biased.
not even close the other way. I think having Joe Hayden at $7 million is a lot more value than having Vince Williams at $4 million. I don't even see how it's close, personally.
Okay, all right. Maybe.
Are you that down? Are you that down on Joe Hayden?
No, maybe just because I am always been a little biased towards Vince Williams. But I also recognize that 2021 is going to be Joe Hayden's last year as a Pittsburgh Steeler.
Yeah, it should be. Absolutely, it should be. Yeah.
And I think that's indicative of, we are seeing decline in his play athletically. Teams are testing him vertically, and some of the speed he had in his career is dissipating. There's no argument there.
I mean, I'll be quite shocked if they lop off Joe Hayden here.
Yeah, I'm not expecting it. I don't think there's a big reason to do so either. It's not like you can create cap space other ways, and you can re-sign Cam Sutton without having to gut other parts of your roster.
And then technically, if you did cut Joe Hayden, if you look at roster displacement costs and all, I mean, you're down to $6.4 million saved in cap space. Is that $6.4 million? Who would you rather have, the cap space or the $6.4 million?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I mean, it's a decent amount of savings, but again, what are you going to do with that?
I love Cameron Sutton, but there's still a lot that we don't know about him. Especially.
What do you want to know?
I want to know, can he really be I need to see more of him playing on the outside to see if he can be that outside starting lockdown cornerback for X amount of dollars. I mean, we know he can move around and can play in the dime and nickel and all like that. I'm fine with that. I'm fine by paying him for along those lines. I'm not sure I'm ready though to pay him to be my outside starting corner for the next 4 years.
The only way I think you could make an argument for cutting Joe Hayden and re-signing Sutton is if you also re-signed Mike Hilton and Sutton became your left cornerback and Hilton was brought back as your slot. And that would be the only way I think you could justify cutting a Joe Hayden.
And really, you're just moving money around that, moving money around positions around that point. You're just, you're taking Joe Hayden's pile and moving it over here and.
Right, but you are getting longer contracts and younger players, and I mean, I think you're better in that sense. But if you're just doing it to re-sign Sutton and Hilton's still walking, then I don't think your team. It's maybe a little bit better on the margins, but not enough to justify that.
All right, 2021 in a vacuum. What is a better secondary? Nelson, Hayden, and Sutton, or Nelson, Sutton, and Hilton? I mean, it would have. Yeah, okay.
The latter.
Yeah, no.
I would say that Sutton, Nelson, and Hilton is better than. I mean, again, it's kind of a wash. I mean, in terms of 2021, it's probably similar, but I think in longer term value.
But I just want 2021 in a vacuum.
Yeah, here. I mean, it's. I don't know.
That's a long pause.
It's kind of a wash. Yeah, I mean, you can make an argument for both. I don't think they're substantially different from each other.
All right. What do you put the chances on Sutton coming back? 30%? 20%?
I don't know. I think they're higher. I think it's like at least a 50% chance he returns. I just can't see them losing both Mike Hilton and Cam Sutton unless the cap comes in at 175.
Okay, we'll see. I mean, if there's one guy that you might be able to get back, maybe it's him.
What are you putting the number at? Are you putting it at 20, 30%?
Yeah, about 20% or so. I mean, once again, yeah, and especially look if it comes in where I like the chances of Sutton obviously returning more so than I do like a guy like Juju on the other side of the ball, just because of the cap room needed and all.
But 20% is still low chances. I mean that's overwhelming.
It's low.
That he walks.
I mean there's a good chance that he'll sign hardly any of these top guys.
Right. Yeah.
All right,
Okay.
Tyson Alualu. I think I did a good job in an article a couple weeks ago carving out a perfect path to bring back Alualu on one of those veteran minimum signing benefit contracts there. And I think that's the only way that you're able to get it done unless you're able to do some 2-year deal with him, where, obviously he knows and that you're probably going to cut him after
the older Ramon Foster.
Right, after the 2021 season there. I like the chances of Tyson Alu being back in some way, shape, or form, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I do too, and I think they'll figure out a way to make it work. It's not going to break the bank, and so I think and I hope he returns.
And I think if we would have had that conversation 3 years ago about potentially re-signing him this offseason, I would say, there ain't no way anything like that we're having any kind of conversation like that. And yet here we are. He played out of his mind. If you get a half a season out of him playing like he played in 2021 and do so on a reduced cap charge, well, you got my vote, brother.
Yep, I'm with you 100%.
One that will get pushback on here, Chris Wormley, I think. Obviously, I don't think he played up to the $2.133 million salary that he was given, but after coming back from that knee injury, I thought he played reasonably well. Man, if I could get this guy back on a very, very, very low cap hit, obviously lower than $2.133 million, I try to do it for at least one season.
Yeah, if I can get it around the minimum, I'm open to doing it just to give yourself some I think, quality depth there, a guy who can play up and down the line. But I can't spend too much money on him, obviously.
No, because the only reason too is I'm looking at my needs in the draft and how I'm going to be able to fill them, and I look at the draft as a whole and the body types and all like that, and I'm not liking what I'm seeing out there. So I'd rather go with the devil that I know as a backup there, as cheap as possible, as opposed to some of these other devils that I don't know out there right now. Once again, this isn't going to be a popular opinion on my end, but I do what I can to bring back Chris Wormley, obviously at a lot lower number than $2.133 million.
Yeah, just even if you had more confidence in your in-house guys like an Isaiah Buggs, then I think you kind of let Wormley walk. But Buggs was a disappointment, and Mondo has some talent there. He's a good athlete for his size, but I don't know if you want him in that Wormley spot. Maybe, but I think it's a question of how much do you like the future of your young defensive lineman, and is that if you like him enough, then you let Wormley walk. If you don't, then you try to bring Wormley back for one more year.
All right, Avery Williamson. Somebody bound to pay that guy more than minimum, right?
Yeah, you would think just for the stats and the volume he has as a starter. I would be open to bringing him back if you cut Vince. If you're keeping Vince, then Williamson probably won't return, nor would he probably want to return. He probably want a better opportunity to play somewhere.
You only bring him back with, and obviously as cheap as possible, but you only bring him back if you can, knowing that the plan is for him to play a large amount of the snaps alongside Devin Bush. Period. I mean that you can't really justify it any other way spending the money.
Yeah, I mean
you're not going to get special team. You're not going to get special team snaps out of him, and we all know that if you're not a starting linebacker with the Steelers, you better have some special teams value to you.
He played a little bit. I mean, he played 10 snaps a game, a couple games. I mean, but I don't know. I think he just wants to go play somewhere and try to be a starter. And if he can't get that in Pittsburgh, then he probably walks and tries to find that chance. So like a la John Bostic.
Right. I just don't see him being back. All right. One guy that you hope you can try to get back is Jordan Dangerfield.
Yeah, now he's unrestricted. Yeah, of course, we're doing an unrestricted section right now. Yeah, again, I love Dangerfield as a personal protector, as a tone setter on special teams, but those type of guys you can't pay much money to, unfortunately.
And being one of the top special teams guys in the league, even in what looks like a depressed market, there might be some sort of market for him more than the minimum out there. So within that, the way that you're going to have to probably keep him is to sign him for a 2-year deal with some sort of signing bonus that keeps him off the street, away from other teams, but at the same time keeps his cap number down. So easier said than done. This is another guy that he probably doesn't want to leave either. Danny Smith probably don't want him to leave either. So I have a funny feeling they get something done with him within the next 6 weeks, Alex.
I hope so. I would hate to see him go, to lose Medikevich and Dangerfield and potentially a Derek Watt all in the same year, or within a 2-year span, would be, I think, pretty detrimental for special teams.
All right, the final 3 on this list are so what's. Sean Davis, Cassius Marsh, J-Ron Elliott. You can probably, if you tried hard enough, have all 3 of those guys back on minimum salaries, and you let them compete and go from there. Marsh is interesting from a special teams aspect only. Elliott's just a practice squad guy at best. Sean Davis, at least he knows what's happening in the defense. That's his selling point. Which isn't much. If you get him back on minimum salary benefit deals, fine. If you don't, fine.
Yeah, I'm basically with you. I mean, Davis will give yourself some extra safety depth because it's not. I mean, it's okay there, and Brooks will be in year 2, although he's kind of been used really as more of a slot type guy. Yeah, take it or leave it with those guys. I'd probably bring back Sean Davis, Marsh, maybe just as depth. Elliott, I'm okay letting walk.
Right, and once again, if you do something on Davis, it's going to be minimal. Once again,
yeah.
And you would probably do it within the next 6 weeks too. So don't be shocked. People will be throwing stuff if it comes across Twitter in the next 3 weeks that the Steelers re-sign Sean Davis. But it could happen.
All right, so that recaps the list. And so really in terms of guys we're confident comes back, it's a short list like it was for the offense. It's Alualu, Dangerfield, if you're confident in it, and Wormley, maybe. I'm not even sure how confident you are in that, but I know you would like to see him come back.
The highest confidence I have as far as ranking him for confidence being back, it would be Alu, and then probably Dangerfield. And then after that, I think it goes down to Wormley and then Sutton in that order, to be honest with you.
Who are the above 50% chance of returning? I assume it's Alualu. Is there anyone else where you feel like it's better chance he returns than he walks?
Oh, that's a great question.
But Alualu, I'm going to take it as one of those 50.
I got a feeling that they can get something done with him with one of the minimums, salary benefit kind of deals here with him. I think it ends there with that list on both sides of the ball, Alex. With me, maybe Dangerfield close to 50%. It's not sexy. That's not what people want to hear. I know, and no, it's not. We're not ranking them percentage of how we like them to be back. It's the probability of them being back. I think it ends for me at Alualu and Dangerfield.
Okay, I'm gonna go Alualu, Dangerfield. I have Wormley at 50-50, and I'll lean in a direction here. I'll say Sutton at 51.
Wow, that high, right? Wow.
I don't think they're going to lose both of those guys, and I think financially you can bring Cam Sutton back, right? What is the barrier to not bringing back Cam Sutton?
What is the what?
The barrier. What is going to prevent this team from bringing back Cameron Sutton?
Market value with another team.
Okay. What do you think that market value is?
That's a good question because he's right there.
We mentioned 5 to 6.
I think he could maybe get that the right team. I think he could get that on $5 million on an open market, maybe.
Okay. Well, hopefully you can resign him before he hits the open market, but still understanding about what his market value could be in that $4 to $5 million range for Sutton on a 2-year deal, 3-year deal. What are you thinking on Sutton?
I think it would have to be 3 years.
All right, so 3 years.
For the Steelers, yeah. For any team in general.
So yeah, 3 years, 15 million. Is that a good number to put at it?
Yeah,
A
maybe
little
13
lower.
to 15, maybe.
All
Yeah.
right. And Pittsburgh can manage that, right? I mean, just financially, unless the cap does come in at 175, I don't,
I mean, it's going to be
it's-
tough any way you slice it if it comes in 190 million. But obviously, the higher the number, the better, right?
right, right. So I mean, provided there isn't that obvious overt, they just have no money because of the way the cap came in at the floor thing. I don't think there's anything stopping this team from bringing back Sutton unless they wanted to bring back Hilton, and then they let Sutton go. But Hilton obviously going to cost more money.
It's going to be. We were pretty sure it's either going to be a none or an either or. It's not going to be both. I don't think.
Right, right. No, it's not going to be both unless you were to cut a corner at that point,
Right.
like a Joe Hayden.
All right.
All right, Dave. I wanted to get your thoughts, and I should have brought this up on Monday's show, so we're kind of the last people to talk about this now. But obviously, the quarterback market this year has been crazy. It'll continue to be crazy. Now, rumors about Derek Carr and is he going to get traded, and obviously what's going on with Deshaun Watson. But on what was that Saturday, I believe it was the mega deal that went down. That was Matthew Stafford going to the Rams, Jared Goff going to the Detroit Lions, and just the craziness of that. And so anyone who wanted Stafford in Pittsburgh, I'm sorry that trade broke your heart. But just your thoughts on the deal and the value in the market of some of these quarterbacks.
Quite interesting, right? I mean, if that's the value for a guy like Matthew Stafford, what is it for Watson?
Yeah.
And I know there's some reports out there that maybe the Las Vegas Raiders will now try to maybe see what they can get for Derek Carr so they can put something together to make a legitimate run at Watson. Heck, you even have Adam Schefter still kind of the latest from him saying that even Sam Darnold's still worth a late first round draft pick from a team. So, wow, I guess you kind of want my thoughts just in general of the trade between those two teams.
Yeah, or whatever your reaction to the trade is, I'd love to hear your thoughts.
I think the Rams, look, here's the thing. It's all about winning Super Bowls, right, baby?
Mm-hmm.
If that's the case, then the Rams did what the Rams needed to do to get the quarterback in there that they think gives them the best chance to win a Super Bowl in the next 2 years. And I think they did that. So they had to give up some first rounders in the process and all. Jared Goff's kind of always been a guy to me. It's been like,
Mm-hmm.
Who has a better chance of winning a Super Bowl in the next 2 years as a result of this trade? My answer would be the Rams.
I would hope everyone's answer is the Rams. The Lions are obviously just trying to rebuild, retool. I know Goff's probably going to be their guy, but the Rams are in win it now mode. The Lions are kind of in let's build it up to win it in 2 to 3 years mode.
How can you give the Lions the win in this if they perpetually stay in rebuild mode? I know the optimism side is, woo, look at all that they got a new coaching staff and all. How much do you trust what they do in Detroit with the new coaching staff of being able to maximize the value of those picks along with Goff to produce even a team that gets to the Super Bowl as opposed to a situation with the Rams and okay, they got the quarterback now.
Sure. I mean, who knows how it'll go in Detroit? We're judging brand new GM Brad Holmes, who drafted Jared Goff. That's why he liked Goff, and new head coach and Dan Campbell. I don't know how they're going to go, but they're going to have to build it. I mean, absolutely. But I like the Rams approach, and I've had this thought for a while. I've expressed it occasionally. I saw someone else tweeted out a couple days ago that I think to an extent, first-round picks, draft picks in general for teams are overrated because you miss on half of those picks, and the ones you hit on are great. But let's take the known commodity over the unknown shiny first round pick, what's behind door number 3 kind of deal. So I don't mind the even though the Rams apparently are allergic to first round picks, I don't mind the mentality of let's get the known guys and try to win big with players we know who can play in the NFL.
And look, this is chip salted middle of the table, and these McVay's chips at that, right? I mean, You got 2 years, brother.
Yeah, you want to talk about a team that is anti-status quo. I mean, these guys just come and go. I mean, the Rams have no qualms about, oh, this guy didn't work. Okay, let's move on. Next plan. And that is a very different approach from what Steelers fans are used to.
I mean, they've got some pieces on defense. Obviously, I mean, they've got the defense. I think still, even after this season, they'll obviously add a piece or two here and there during this offseason and all like that. But they should have the defense to be able to compete in 2021. The question's always been, offense and the quarterback position specifically. So if you go out and whatever the cost is and you get the guy that brings you a Super Bowl in the next 2 years, is that not the object of the game?
Yeah, if you do that, then it's a huge win. And if you're not comfortable with your quarterback situation, you better change it, because either you're changing your quarterback situation or the ownership is changing your head coaching situation, because you're going to get fired if you don't have a quarterback that you think you can win with. And McVay didn't think Goff was that guy, and so you made a move, and you got to respect that.
Yeah, it takes money to make money, right?
Yeah, that's what they say.
So there you go. So yeah, I like it. I like it more so from the Rams' point of view. I might be one of the few that feel the Rams got the better end of the deal. And I only say that because I think the Rams have a lot more likelier chance to win a Super Bowl in the next 2 years because of the result of this deal. Period.
Yeah, and the Lions are still going to be competing with Aaron Rodgers for however much longer he plays, and the Vikings are a good team, and so they got to rebuild this thing, and they're not going to be real contenders for a couple of years, and even then, they may still not be the favorite.
All right, what else we got?
All right, I think if you had anything else you want to add, feel free, or we can get to some reader emails and close out today's show.
All right, we'll get to some reader emails here. Let's see. Darren Boyer writes in, Ben's worth. What is the list of teams who would sign Ben to a 1-year deal worth $19 million? The question seems like the most objective way for Steeler fans to evaluate Ben at this stage of his career.
What was the question? Can you repeat?
How many teams out there would sign Ben right now to a 1-year, $19 million contract? And I think we're supposed to kind of use that, put it in a vacuum.
Mm-hmm.
The way I'm taking it.
I mean, there would be a market for Ben. Some people say, Ben wouldn't start on any other team. I'm like, no, he would definitely start on some teams.
Let's see. It would not be Buffalo. Would Miami pay Ben $19 million right now to be their quarterback?
They have Tua.
New England.
Belichick might.
Jets.
Probably not. I mean, they're not winning this year, so what's the point?
Baltimore, Cleveland, or Cincinnati?
No.
Tennessee, Indianapolis, Jacksonville?
See Indy doing it. I'll put Indy down.
Las Vegas or Denver? Denver might.
Yeah, I could see Denver doing it.
Let's see. Philadelphia would be the only team. Washington or Philadelphia?
I think make a case for either of those, to be honest with you. I could say, yeah. I think, this is obviously extreme hypothetical, but yeah, I'd put them down.
Chicago?
I could see Chicago, yep.
Carolina?
Yeah, I can see with Rivera, sure.
Yeah, I could as well, too. So I think we came up with a few of them that might consider it.
Yeah, that's 7. That's New England, the Colts, Denver, Philadelphia, Washington, Chicago, Carolina. It was the 7 that we both thought, just in some level of it makes sense.
I agree.
All right, good question.
Let's see here. Hold on a minute. Let me move down one here. Let's see here. Well, that's spam. Zach Banner. No, here's one from Pastor. I missed one from Pastor Joe Green. David Alex, this year's draft evaluation will be difficult. Next year's draft should be stocked. Next year we should have multiple comp picks. Here's my proposal. Trade our first round pick this year for a 2021 second round pick and a 2022 first round pick. Then use our 2 second round picks and our third round pick in 2021 for 2 offensive linemen and a running back. Next year, ... we will have 2 first-round picks and a stack of other picks in order to trade up for a quarterback. Discuss.
He's saying to trade down this year?
Yeah.
I've always been open to the idea of trading down. I think the Steelers don't do it enough in the sense they really don't do it at all. And I think in a year where it is so difficult, as the reader's saying, you want to have as many darts to throw at the dartboard as possible. So I'm not opposed to the idea, but I don't find it very likely to happen because the Steelers either stand pat or occasionally move up. Were they ever traded down in the first round before under Colbert? They've ever done that?
Have they traded down?
I think they've ever traded down.
I think they have. Yeah, Casey, right? Casey Hampton year they traded.
Oh yeah.
I know they did that year.
They had a high pick that year, right?
I'm trying to think who else they moved down for too. Seems like pull that up. You got to pull that up on the site. The history.
The article you have, history of Kevin Colbert's trades. But they went from they had a high pick that year. They traded down to get Casey, right? Not to get Casey, but just trade down. Eventually took Casey Hampton. They went from 16. Okay, they kind of switched. They went from 16 to 19 in 2001.
Okay.
In 2003, they moved up to get Troy. So that was from 27 to 16. Trying to see any other examples of it. Nothing else is coming to mind right now. I think in terms of them trading down, I think that's the only instance of it was Hampton in 2001. So Colbert's second draft.
All right. Let's see here. Bryce writes in questions about Zach Banner. While we need to see more of Zach Banner, I do wonder if, when healthy, if his ceiling is a guy like Max Starks. They seem to be similar guys to me. So having said that, if the Steelers don't go left tackle in the first round of the draft or re-sign Filer, could we see both Chooks and Banner competing again for the tackle spot, but this time for the left tackle position? Do you see Banner as possibly Max Starks-like tackle? The 2011 season comes to mind. I can see where. There's still so much we don't know about Banner in the physical shape that he's in.
Let's assume that he's ready for.
Instead of the new Jan Brady, the new Zach Banner. The body type and look. Zach Banner in his limited time that he played at right tackle this past year was good, right?
Yeah, but it was 50 snaps.
Right. Not a lot to go on there. To ask us to go ahead and put a ceiling on him like a guy like Max Starks, I guess I'd take it because Max Starks was a Super Bowl winning left tackle.
Starting. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. That'd be great to have. It's an incomplete picture for the O-line right now. Who's your left tackle? If you don't have anyone in-house and the core four could flip over and Banner could be a right tackle, they both could compete, I guess, in theory for left tackle. They both just could compete for the right tackle spot. Again, if you draft Alex Leatherwood or Cosme or whoever at 24 and he's your left tackle, then those guys could fight out for the right tackle spot again. So it's all, A, he's got to get re-signed. Let's just start there. And then B, let's see what the rest of the offensive line picture looks like before we start talking about, since, seriously, camp battles and things like that.
And if you re-sign Filer at this point right now, it's to play tackle. It has to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not to play guard because Dawson's going to be your guard.
Okay, let's see.
At least he better be. So mad they started Filer with the playoff game.
Yeah, I don't understand it either. Kevin Pollock writes in about, hey, Dave and Alex, rushing success rate. Dave, you sent out a tweet over the weekend about rushing success rates in 2020. The thing I found interesting is that the bottom 10 teams, all except one, had either quarterback issues or the coach was fired. Here's your list starting with the worst. And he's got Bears quarterback issue, Broncos quarterback issues, Steelers blank. Texans fired coach, Jags fired coach, Chargers fired coach, Falcons fired coach, 49ers quarterback issues, Washington quarterback issues, Lions fired coach. My question is about how much the quarterback impacts the rushing success rates, and based on the data, how much Ben Roethlisberger is to blame for the running game issues, if at all.
It's a good question. How much of that is correlation and causation? I'm sure to some extent, but there's just the worst teams in football generally have the worst offenses in football, and that means usually having the worst run games in football too. So I don't know how much we can learn from that specifically. Obviously, as Steeler fans saw in 2019 with a bad quarterback and teams stacked the box, really sell to stop the run. And with the Steelers this year, although they had a much better quarterback, the lack of a vertical threat probably allowed teams to play single high more often. So it's a long way for me to not really answer the question. I'm sure you could make an argument there was some component of it to blame Ben. I think you could blame every component with how bad this run game was, but I think that would be low down on the issues of why the run game struggled.
And obviously, Steelers had a fine defense for most of the season up until they got into their one playoff game. Washington had a good defense as well too, so I don't think you can go factoring in the team's defense as an issue here. I'm wondering what the best way would be to kind of see. This is where I get. This is where I should have not smoked pot during high school and paid attention to math classes. Of what the best way to kind of correlate, to kind of use statistics to best answer this question, I guess.
Let's talk to Brad. Brad, help us.
I understand where he's going. How much of the quarterback impacts rushing success rates? Look, if your adjusted net yards per passing attempt stat isn't all that, then you're probably going to be relying even more on the run game, correct? And in the Steelers' case specifically, their adjusted net yards per pass attempt number was just good enough that it really could have used better run success rates. I think the running game, what's the best way? I think the running game could have better helped the quarterback than the quarterback helped the running game. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I don't know. There's just a lot of variables in that question. I mean, box counts and quarterback play and O-line play and scheme and injuries and I don't know. There's a lot that goes in there that makes it hard to try to pull out one component of it, like quarterback play, and try to really quantify how much blame or credit that guy should get.
Just in a vacuum question here to kind of just give Kevin something. A better run game, a better run success rate can help any quarterback, period, right?
Sure. I think his argument is a better quarterback will also help out your run game. Your success rate in the run game.
His question is how much the quarterback impacts rushing success rates.
Right. Where did the Chiefs finish in run success rate this year? In Brad's post, were they middle of the pack?
They were middle of the pack, I believe. Right.
Okay. So yeah, I'm just trying to find let's find the best quarterback in football. How good was that run game?
Now once again, here's the thing. That would be interesting to find out is now in Brad's study he eliminates the quarterback scramble, obviously the quarterback kneel. I wonder how much if you took away, is it fair to teams like also to like the Ravens if you totally take away all quarterback runs?
You can't do that because half of those are designed runs by Lamar.
Right. So, and how, not that Mahomes has a lot of designed quarterback runs, but he does have a few, right?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
So how much did Mahomes' ability to run affect those run success rates with the Chiefs this past year? Who were middle of the league run success rates.
Right. But I think in Brad's post, they were top 10 in first and second down run success rate, and they were just bad on third down. So again, there's just a lot of noise in that question. That's an important question, but it's hard to really be able to, I don't know.
That's why I told Brad. Brad said, "Boy, I really enjoyed doing that article." I said, "Well, there's a lot of meat left on that bone still. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of meat still left on the run success bone."
Yeah, no, I'm sure you could spend a whole offseason just doing studies on the run game, and we probably will.
All right, here's one. This one's kind of scary. Dave and Alex, I love the show from Tommy in Pensacola. Dave, I live in your old stomping grounds here on Gulf Beach Highway. I probably know some of the buddies you grew up with. If you ever come back this way, I would love to meet with you. Okay. One error that I think you made in a salary cap breakdown last episode is that you never mentioned Eric Ebron. I understand correctly. Your spreadsheet would say $5.5 million if we cut him. Many times you have mentioned that his blocking is awful, and I believe that we would be better off without him and bring back Jesse James. Claypool was even thought early on as a possible tight end, and he can fill many of the pass catching opportunities that Eric Ebron has. Also, you didn't once mention Haskins either as a possible long-term solution to Ben's eventual retirement. If he can fix his attitude problem, which I believe is an easier to fix than Rudolph's problems, I think he has more potential. Finally, I love Claypool, Johnson, and Washington, and think we would be just fine without Smith-Schuster, even much as I love him. I would much rather focus on defensive free agents first than Juju if we have cap room. All right, no, you're not going to get any complaints about that last look. I hopefully they get something done with Juju, but I'm not counting on it. Juju, to me right now, if you're able to re-sign him, is a luxury. Okay, you and I agree with that, right, Alex?
In terms of Juju being a luxury?
Yeah. Is Juju a luxury to bring back?
I mean, I don't know if I would say that. I want Juju back. I don't know how I would describe it. Obviously, I understand you may not be able to re-sign him, but I think it'll hurt your offense.
You're just saying if he's not a luxury, then because of the cap situation, then he's just a meh. You know, it's like you're indifferent to it, right? Are you indifferent to Juju returning?
No, I want Juju to return. For sure. So, I don't consider him a luxury.
Why would you not consider him a luxury based on this team's cap situation?
I'm talking about Juju in terms of the player. How am I supposed to evaluate this question from a financial standpoint or from a Juju's talent standpoint? From a financial standpoint, yeah, I mean, that is like, I guess, a luxury in the sense of you do it if you have the cap room to do it.
Okay.
If that makes sense. But I mean, I think Juju's a valuable piece of this.
All right, let's look at the other. Let's look at the other part of the email here about Eric Ebron. Look, yeah, have I not made myself clear about my thoughts on Eric Ebron? I feel like I have. Tommy, I guess, is taking it the other way. I guess Tommy is wondering why we're not giving more plausibility to the fact that Eric Ebron could be a salary cap casualty. I'm assuming that's the way Tommy's going.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what it sounded like. I mean, he could, but you're not going to have anything in your tight end room. And considering you can create cap space all the other ways we've discussed, unless you really had to do it for some reason, I don't think it makes a lot of sense, nor do I think it's likely that Ebron's a cap casualty. Again, nothing Ebron did this year should be a surprise, the good or the bad. I mean, he's the same guy he was for the entirety of his career. So if the Steelers are surprised by anything he did, they didn't know the guy they were getting.
Look, I'm not going to lose any sleep, Tommy, if they cut Eric Ebron. I don't get much sleep anyway, so I'm not going to lose any. But within that, and I think Alex's post and what he just said after the season ended and what Alex just recapped there is you just don't run out and get a tight end and replace him that catches 50 balls for how many yards did he have?
500. 550 something.
And how many touchdowns?
5. He was a 555 club.
Okay, you just don't run out and get that guy.
Right, and a rookie tight end, as much as I want them to draft one, they take a year. It's a redshirt year for them to get acclimated to becoming a starter.
So as much as I wouldn't lose, and this I guess is where I'm at, Tommy, and maybe where I have come off really since the season ended, is I'm resigned to the fact that Ebron's going to be back. Maybe that's the best way to put it. I am resigned to the fact that Ebron's going to be retained. And then I've pretty much just left it at that. I mean, to me, there's no sense even talking about this because I'm resigned to the fact. I know you're resigned to the fact of him being back. So
yeah, I like that word resigned. It's a good word for it.
So maybe that's why the error that we presumably are making in the salary cap breakdown by not including Eric Ebron in there is we are both resigned to the fact that it's just not happening. Now, could it? Yeah. Will it be World War III if they cut him? No. But I guess we're just to the point that we just don't think it's going to happen. So that's why we don't add a plausibility level to it.
Well, it's part that. I don't think it's going to happen. But I'm not rooting for it to happen either. I think they should bring back Eric Ebron. Again, the cap situation, we don't know all the details there, but I'm not clamoring for this team to cut Eric Ebron.
Okay. The other aspect that he has here with the whole Haskins thing, good luck. Period. I mean, the
What was he even
whole
saying about
possible. He says, and you didn't once mention Haskins either as a possible long-term solution to Ben's eventual retirement. I believe right after they signed him, I said if you get 2 years down the road, the best case scenario is didn't I outline what the best case scenario is with Haskins right immediately after he was signed?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you did.
And what did I say?
Yeah, that he hold on to him for a couple of years. I mean, tender him after this year, and he becomes, potential starter. I guess that would be what, in 2022 if Ben's gone and if Rudolph's gone, be in that mix at least.
Right, at least being in the mix, and maybe you get a stopgap guy, and maybe you get a guy that that could be a franchise. I think that's a extreme high best case scenario, but I did leave it out there. Look, there's not a lot right now other than, man, that guy can put the mustard on the football. Positive to say about Haskins. I'm sorry, there's just not. I mean, the guy can flick his wrist and sling it. Okay. Outside of that, give me something else that I can build around with Haskins here, Alex.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see what he can do, but like my mentality's always been, let's get him to camp first. Let's just make sure he gets through to late July. And if he wasn't a first-round pick, we wouldn't be having this conversation. He'd just be a futures we didn't talk about how Brogan Roback could be the heir to Ben's throne or JT Barrett or anyone like that. And I understand there's a difference there, but I mean, Haskins is at the lowest point of his career right now. So let's just get him through July, see him a little bit in camp, potential preseason, and go from there before you start talking about, the plausibility of him being the future franchise quarterback of this team.
All right, one last one. Thoughts on position coaches from Mathena writes in. I think position coaches are vastly overrated. People making a big deal about some of the hires are being a little over dramatic. Boy, he's coming in hot. He's coming in hot like Dave right there. You obviously want the best staff possible, but position coaches aren't miracle workers. No position coach or head coach was going to turn Jarvis Jones into Lawrence Taylor. It is important to reset expectations. Everyone points to Mike Munchak as the gold standard for position coaches, but let's not get it twisted. He had a lot of talent. Pouncey and DeCastro were all pro caliber in their prime before Munchak took over. Gilbert was highly regarded second-round pick in his prime. Foster was an NFL starter. Munchak did a great job with Al and deserves credit for that, but let's not get carried away. He didn't work magic on every journeyman, offensive lineman, or draft pick that came through the door. On that note, though, I find it odd that Bradley lost his job. Eddie Faulkner got an extension. The secondary had a good year overall. The running backs, on the other hand, were awful. Snell didn't take a second-year leap. McFarland did nothing, and Connor was subpar. Some of these coaching moves are truly odd. I guess that's just a take, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's more of a take. I don't know if there's a question. I mean, some of what you're saying there is true, but they're just extreme hyperbolic arguments. Of course that these guys aren't miracle workers. They can't turn water into wine. And of course Mike Munchak didn't turn every guy that got invited to training camp into an all-pro or anything like that. But I don't know, man. I mean, if you want to draft these guys, develop these guys, who's supposed to do that? It's your positional coaches. They're not going to make everyone work. They're not going to be perfect. And some guys just naturally have talent that could probably succeed under any coach. But if you want to draft, develop the way the Steelers do, you need some good positional coaches to do that. And so I think they're extremely valuable. I think anyone who's played probably tells you that.
A guy like Keith Butler will never get any – Keith Butler will always be talked down on more than he'll be talked up on, right? Period.
Yeah, that's probably fair. And I'm guilty of that. I try to give Keith Butler credit, and there are things Keith Butler does well, but obviously I've been critical of Keith Butler. He does a great job coaching the position.
Had the Steelers went on to win the Super Bowl this past year, we would not be talking about, oh, look at the job Randy Fichtner and Keith Butler did.
Yeah.
Period.
Right. And to the reader's point, obviously those are examples of the team throwing a lot of talent that really helps make a coach look good.
What would the narrative had been? It's way out there. Had they actually, maybe let's say, even gone to the Super Bowl this year? What would the narrative would it have been? All Mike. It would have been all Mike Tomlin, wouldn't it?
It would have been that. It would have been, Butler had a lot of talent to work with, which it wouldn't be the wrong argument to make, but I don't think a lot of people would have been falling over themselves to give Keith Butler credit.
When's the last time that we talked about, thank heavens for Steelers coach A?
I don't know, Dick LeBeau?
Right.
I mean,
other than that, right? Period. That's the list. That's it. That's the list.
Right. Sure. But I think there's a lot of great coaches that we don't get to see. Richard Mann, a great coach. James Yannell just retiring. What a great coach James Yannell was. Never got the credit that he probably deserved. So a lot of the work just goes unnoticed because obviously it doesn't happen on Sunday. It happens Monday through Saturday. And it's hard to evaluate those guys and the job that they do because we don't really get to see their work. That makes some of the decisions tough to evaluate in terms of who they hire, who they keep, who they fire, all that. But I think the job is really important.
All right, one last one on our 2-hour plus off-season show here, 2 hour long. John Stefano writes in, "Hey Dave, we have dedicated many shows lately to the salary cap. What the hell is the holdup in announcing the cap number? What are they waiting for? After the Super Bowl, why? And what goes into decision of the numbers? Thanks." John, I wish I had a better answer for you, man. Well, Alex and I just talked about this. I find it hard to imagine. I understand maybe wanting all the revenue, Super Bowl numbers in, make sure you get to that point and yada yada. Okay, I understand not knowing up until the Super Bowl, but even 1, 2, 3 weeks, I'll give you 3 weeks after the Super Bowl. You can't tell me with all these smart push and the league, trust me, the league surrounds himself with the best of the best when it comes to figuring out crap like this. I, for the life of me, don't understand, John, why 3 weeks after every season ends, they don't have a salary cap announcement show, which I would DVR and watch 3 times, okay? Because, okay, I'm a nerd. All right. I don't have a good answer for you, John. I wish I did. Maybe we're going to have Joe Corey on here in the next show or 2 or 3. Maybe we'll ask him of why it takes so long to get a cap number.
Yeah, I mean, I know there's a lot of math, and this year's a specialty circumstance, but I don't know. Hopefully, the sooner the better, because that's going to benefit everybody. It's going to benefit players, teams, the league, us. But we'll see.
There's a lot of things above my pay grade when it comes to this. I give me the data on a lot of these things and the tape or whatnot I can work with. A lot of the other stuff behind closed doors and all, I'm just as much of at a handicap as the rest of you guys here. So, but just from a logical standpoint, I don't have a great answer for you, John. I think 3 weeks after, I really think the NFL would have a great makings of the salary cap announcement show, which would run right after the weekend of the combine, right? Which we're not having. I would watch it.
I think C-SPAN 3 would get better ratings than the salary cap show.
I mean, you could build a whole show around that. You get the Joe Coreys on there. You get the Andrew Brandts on there, and you say, well, here's the salary cap. Here's what the teams are looking at. In that, it would do stunning, smashing.
All right.
Within that,
call a producer.
I think it's a good time for us to probably end this show that we've got to this point here.
We're the salary cap show. What are you talking about? That's what we do.
Yeah, there you go. Only us could talk about that. In the meantime, we'll be back on Friday with our Super Bowl LV preview show. Talk about the game. Talk about anything else Steeler news that has happened. They need to get. We'll talk about. Is Allen Fan, the Hall of Fame and all like that? Who's going to get in? This year's class. All the stuff related to that. Going to be a busy Friday show just the same. So within that, you can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex Kozora at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and want to donate to the cause, go to SteelersDepot.com, hit the donate button. If you want an ad-free version of the site, go to SteelersDepot.com, hit the ad-free button. For $25 for 1 calendar year, you can have an ad-free version of the show. Appreciate it, Alex. A lot of good chat today. You and I will be back on Friday. And as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.